And after speaking last weekend, what have you got to work on this week in preparation for Essendon, and what you've learned over the last kind of 3 games, kind of seeking that consistency across 4 quarters? Like, what is kind of the things you're really honed in on this week?
Yeah, the consistency is one major element that we've been focusing on for a number of weeks, but probably had some good signs last week against the Swans, where we played quarter 1 to 4, which was what we're after, based off the first 2 rounds where we kind of started well and finished really poorly. So last week was a good step in the right direction, but a lot of our focus is around how we get that consistency from quarter 1 to 4, but what moments and scenarios in games that allow us to buy into that understanding with some greater clarity. And I think our tempo and control has been a bit too live at times throughout games, which then might cause the game to be a bit more chaotic at times where it shouldn't need to be. So a lot of our focus with our reflection and our training has been about just understanding those scenarios better and making sure we make better decisions in real time to control how the game's played to a certain degree.
But I guess over the last season and a half, I feel like last time there was those times as well, just wasn't able to kind of get that consistency. Is there certain things you've identified, whether it is just game kind of scenarios, whether it's fitness or play mentality type of thing, to really kind of seek to get that consistency?
Yeah, it's always trying to find the right combination and balance. Clearly, I think our fitness levels have been probably the best they've been for a while in terms of our conditioning planning and how we approach our training. So that's all very positive. It's just about decision making and getting a better awareness in games around understanding what scenario you're in, where you are on the ground, decisions you can make in those scenarios, and then can have an impact whether you can support your attack in a really strong, connected way, or it's actually taking away from your defensive outputs too, which makes your team a bit more vulnerable to get scored against. And it's getting that balance right from player to player, group to group, week to week is what we're after. And as the team progresses and we get some continuity with players and positions, and there's an understanding of philosophy around ball movement and style, that should marry up pretty well. But you're right, the last season and a half there's been a bit of a direction around those types of things, and I think they're always going to be a part of the conversation planning off the back of a really short season and less time to practice those in real time scenarios where it's not just on the training track. More practice in those scenarios is what we're after as much as we can.
No fresh injuries that we're aware of in the health report, Dan, but nobody that would come available will look fairly similar. You have been, I won't use the word ruthless, but you're not afraid to make calls. You've obviously Zali after round 1 and already after round 2. Will you do too much in terms of team?
The team will look a little bit different again off the back of that. Again, to Meg's point around consistency, it's we want to make sure that we're sticking to our philosophy and our method around how we play the game, but just making sure that also our players get good looks that play different positions to see what they can bring to the team and what attributes they've got. We've got a number of players now who are putting their hand up to say, hey, listen, play me, who have come off long-term rehab and injuries. So we've probably got a bit more availability now this week to consider. Like Sienna Telleridi is one that's put her hand up and she's coming closer and closer to playing, which is exciting for us as a team and our teammates as well. And Alexi Gregor is also training really well. Caitlin Tipping's back training with the main group now. So there's going to be change off the back of availability, which is really good. Yes, if we want to try and get the team to be consistent, but I don't think we need to be afraid of throwing maggots around if it's going to support on-field performance.
0-3 is not disaster, it's not ideal, but what gives you the confidence that you can still get moving and keep the season alive as long as possible?
Yeah, I think it's just seeing those moments in games where it shows that we're good enough and playing a certain system and style that suits the playing group's strengths. And you see that from quarter to quarter against the really strong traditional sides who are consistently playing well, and we can match that or be playing a more damaging brand against those types of oppositions. So that gives me really positivity around what we're doing is the right thing. But you still need to be flexible and change depending on who you're playing or who's available for your team. But I think we're on the right track now it's just about making sure we find that right balance with our personnel that can implement that style and system for long enough, but also, the IQ and the game awareness to marry it up is really important as well. So we'll keep changing players and our team around to suit what we think is the best matchup for the opposition, but also for the best output for our performance as well.
What have you made of Essendon through the first 3 rounds?
Yeah, they've been obviously 3-0. Had a pretty good game against the Giants early days, round 1. Had to come from behind, against West Coast in round 2 at home, which was an exciting game to watch and a bit of a lower scoring affair. And last week they obviously travelled up to Darwin and in those conditions have to fight a really strong fight against Richmond, who probably had their chances as well to put some scoreboard pressure on, but didn't quite take it, which sounds very familiar to how we've played the last couple of games. But yeah, so if they've challenged, they find a way, which is impressive for their squad. They've got a really nice mix of their younger players coming through and having influence in games. I know they've got a couple of key players out that they'd rather have in, but all signs show that they're gelling quite well as a team. So it'd be a really good challenge.
Just to ask, with the injury list, Charlie Scott, I think it's still really around that 5 to 7 week for the last couple of weeks. Is there any setback there, or is that just?
No, I think it's just the slow rehab, unfortunately for her. So she was here game day on Saturday and was really positive around how she was going, but just obviously frustrated the fact it's just a bit of a slow burn. The old calf issue is probably going to be one you have to monitor closely, and you can't rush back. But Kate Darby's in the same boat. Like she's running now, which is really good. So getting the experience back in the team or just around the group is really important as well.
Do you want a 2-week gap or a 3-week gap between Chloe's shitty questions, Dan? I haven't been pretty good enough.
Well, she's another one that if we get to see number 14 come out and play in our team, it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing for us. But she's progressing really well with her rehab, and whether it gets a chance to play or not, time will tell. But all I can say is that she's a positive character around the group, and she's getting herself involved in the day-to-day, which is more than what she could do last year, which is positive.
Yeah. As well, like with Piper, and it's exciting to kind of get those tools in to the program, which is kind of what we really kind of needed. But how have you just seen her first 3 games? And she's had some really, challenging opponents.
Yeah, she has.
Sarah Allen and then Ali on the weekend as well. Going, I guess, would be like Van Dyke.
Yeah, and then they might get Wales back this week.
How have you just seen her, what she's learning in these first kind of?
It's all positive. Yeah, it's all positive. Like, she's a student of the game. Obviously, she's come from a basketball background, but she's always followed football. But to now feel it and have to react or make adjustments to the game itself, like it's just complete buy-in. Yes, she's had some challenging starts with the opposition she's played against, but she's taken some really strong learnings from that, to the point where our talls we're not hiding the fact that we didn't have those tall players to support the rucks and support our mids, but. I think one of the stats this year for us is that we're actually winning centre bounce clearance percentage, which is that's a big thing for our team to have that ascendancy against 3 pretty strong teams in that space. To know that we can match in there, and Piper's a big part of that so far with the limited practice and training. Last year of VFLW was quite good, but against AFLW players who have had a lot of experience and talent, every game she gets to play, she'll take something from that game, in a positive way, whether it be from her own performance, opposition, how they do things to support their mids. So now she's been a really strong breath of fresh air, and we look forward to seeing what she can do this week against another strong opposition.
No, too good. She's a massive out for them for the last couple of weeks, but they still obviously had some key goal kickers, G. Alexander last week as well. Just to a defence, in terms of kind of nullifying their attacking end. What would you expect from that? Yeah,
well, it's about trying to limit the source that they get from contest to contest. So they've got a really strong midfield group that are playing really well together at the moment. I think their clearance rate's pretty high as well. So if we can match it in that area of the ground and limit the way it comes in as much as we can, also getting the ball going to our front half and spending more time up there will support that too. But we've got full trust in our defenders to be really strong on their matchups. They're pretty potent when they go inside 50. I think their score inside 50% is quite high in the competition, so yeah, they're connecting really well. It's just about how our slow play or life play defence can support, making things difficult for them. So around the contest will be really critical, and I think it's something to look for in the day when you're watching the game.
Do you enjoy watching Press Parkers?
I reckon early days it was probably a really big deal, but right now, 4 years late down the track now, it's probably not as prevalent in regards to the conversation. They're completely different players, which is good to watch both sides of the coin. Mads is a really measured, strong IQ. Not to say Georgie hasn't got strong IQ either, but they just play the game in different modes. I was coming off the track this morning, and Georgie's, she's fast, she's furious. She's got a really good combination of a lot of things going for it. So it's two different styles to watch. And again, I don't talk to George as much during the week around these types of preparations for Essendon, because they're both quite respectful of each other's preparation and their respective teams. But it's always going to be a talking point because they're both exceptionally good players in the competition. But I'm looking forward to seeing them get out there, because they're very, as sisters, they're very close. And it's good to see them post-game get amongst each other and support each other's performance. But on field, I'm sure there's a white line that's crossed, and they stick to their own plan. Yeah, so it'll be good to watch. Yeah.
I want to ask you, AFL men have a gather round, and I think Steve Hocking floated maybe last year that Geelong had entertained potentially putting it to the AFL, that AFLW had a gather round, that Geelong might be a location for it. Are you for a gather round for AFLW?
100% for it, yeah. How it works, I think Geelong would be a great location for it due to its proximity to local grounds and obviously the precinct we've got here as well that can support the community coming from all different parts of Melbourne or Victoria or interstate. But I think anything that puts the AFLW in a really positive light and gives it a cause of celebration, big spotlight, is a positive thing. There's been talk about a Gaelic v Australian game as well, which I think is another one that we should be floating with the amount of Irish players in that competition. Anything that can celebrate the AFLW and have it in its own space, under its own spotlight, I think is a positive thing. And I think Geelong would be a great position for it. So yeah, those ideas, that's what you want to hear. You want to find ways to promote women in sport, AFLW, girls in the local community getting around and having a really important say in that as well. And I think, we shouldn't be stopping those types of ideas from happening.